Zora, the alien mother, had never imagined that her life would come to this. She had once lived on a vibrant planet, surrounded by family and warmth. Her home was filled with laughter, and her people thrived in harmony with the stars. But that was before the destruction. Her homeworld had been attacked by a merciless force, a battle that left the once peaceful planet in ruins. The skies were no longer clear, and the air no longer smelled sweet. Everything had turned into a bleak wasteland. Zora's people fought valiantly, but they were outmatched. The invaders, beings from a distant galaxy, had wiped out nearly everything, every home, every family, every dream. And just when Zora thought the worst was over, the true tragedy struck. Her family had been torn apart. Her husband, her brothers, and her sisters had all perished. She was left alone to care for her son Taro, who was only an infant when the destruction began. Taro had no idea what had happened to their home. All he knew was that he was hungry, cold, and scared. Zora did everything she could to keep him safe, but the resources on their home planet had been depleted. There was no food, no water, and no shelter. Desperation began to set in. Zora knew that if she stayed on the planet any longer, both she and her baby would die. Her only hope lay in a distant planet, a planet that she had heard whispers about in the dying days of her people. It was a place where the air was breathable. The soil was fertile, and the creatures, though different, were known for their kindness. Earth. Zora had managed to repair an old spacecraft, a relic from her homeworld. With no other options left, she placed her son in a small, secure cradle and made the long journey to Earth. The journey was treacherous, and she barely made it. Her ship had malfunctioned midway through the flight, but she had managed to land safely, though exhausted and weak from the long journey. The first thing Zora did when she touched down on Earth was to check on Taro. He was alive, but he had grown weaker from lack of food and water. She had no strength left to care for him, and the little food she had was barely enough for one, let alone two. Zora knew she couldn't take care of him alone anymore. She had no choice but to seek help, but where could she go? Who would help her, an alien, with no knowledge of Earth's languages or customs? The thought terrified her. She had heard stories of humans helping those in need, but would that be the case for her and her son? She doubted it. Would they see her as a monster, an invader, or would they see her as a mother desperate to save her child? The cold wind whipped through the streets as Zora walked down a narrow alley. Her body ached, and her head throbbed from exhaustion. She looked at the baby in her arms, his small body trembling in the cold. He whimpered softly, his tiny hand reaching out for something, anything to hold on to. Zora's heart shattered with the sound. She knew that she had to act, and she had to act fast. But what could she do? Her eyes fell upon a small house, its porch lit with a soft, welcoming glow. There was a sense of peace about it, a warmth that felt inviting. She knew she had to make a decision, one that would determine the fate of her son. With her last ounce of strength, she gently placed Taro on the doorstep, wrapping him in a blanket she had salvaged from her ship. She stepped back, taking one last look at her baby. The pain in her chest was unbearable, but she had no other choice. Zora took a deep breath and whispered to her son, "Be safe, little one." She knew that she might never see him again, but she hoped with all her heart that someone would find him. Someone would care for him the way she could no longer. With tears streaming down her face, Zora turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving her son behind, in the hope that a kind soul would take him in. She could no longer care for him, but she still believed in the goodness of others. She still believed that, even in the darkest of times, there was hope. Zora's heart was heavy, but she knew that her sacrifice might be the only way to give her son a chance at life. And with that final act of selflessness, she disappeared into the night, leaving behind a piece of her soul, hoping that someone would find it and take care of her precious Taro. Ethan had always lived a simple life. He was a quiet man, content with his small home and his peaceful existence. A bachelor in his early 30s, he worked as a mechanic in a local garage. He didn't crave excitement or adventure. He was happiest when things were predictable and calm. Every day, he would go to work, return home, and spend his evenings reading or watching the stars. The world around him seemed to be going at its own fast pace, but Ethan never felt the need to chase after it. He was fine with his small, solitary world. But tonight, things were different. As Ethan walked back from the garage, the evening air felt heavier, thicker somehow. A strange stillness hung in the air, like the world was holding its breath. The usual noises of the neighborhood, the sound of cars, people chatting, dogs barking, were all absent. The street was quiet, unusually so. Ethan shrugged it off, thinking it was just the peaceful nature of the night, but a strange feeling tugged at the back of his mind. It was as if something was about to happen, something he couldn't predict. As he neared his house, Ethan's eyes caught sight of something unusual on his front porch. At first, he thought it might be a stray animal, perhaps a cat or a raccoon. But as he got closer, he saw that it was something far more unexpected. A small bundle was lying on the doorstep, wrapped in what appeared to be a tattered but surprisingly soft blanket. It wasn't a cat, or a dog, or anything Ethan could easily recognize. Curiosity overtook him, and he approached cautiously. As he knelt down to get a better look, his heart stopped for a moment. There, lying in the blanket, was a baby. But this wasn't a human baby. Ethan had no idea what it was, but there was no mistaking that it was alive. The tiny creature's skin was a soft blue, its eyes large and glistening. It made a faint cooing noise as if calling out to him. Its tiny hands reaching up, grasping the air as though it were searching for comfort. For a moment, Ethan's mind raced. Was this some sort of prank? Some kind of bizarre costume? But no, this felt real. The baby was warm, its little chest rising and falling as it breathed. There was no way it could be a toy or some kind of elaborate hoax. It was a real, living being, something not of this world. His first instinct was to run. He was alone, and his house was far from anything familiar. He could only imagine what kind of trouble a situation like this might bring. But when he looked at the baby's face, its wide, innocent eyes staring up at him, filled with confusion and fear, Ethan couldn't bring himself to walk away. It was then that Ethan realized something. The baby wasn't just abandoned. It had been left here, on his doorstep, and something deep within him told him that this was no accident. The baby needed help, and Ethan was the only one there to offer it. Without thinking, Ethan picked the baby up gently, wrapping it in the blanket to keep it warm. He glanced around quickly, but the street remained eerily quiet. The houses nearby were dark, and no one was in sight. As he carried the baby inside, Ethan's thoughts raced. What was he supposed to do? Who would believe him if he told them about this? And more importantly, where had the baby come from? Was it safe to even bring it into his home? But as he sat down on his couch, the baby in his arms, something inside him told him that this was the right thing to do. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew he couldn't turn his back on this little one. The baby's soft cries had already begun to fade, and it had settled into his arms, its little body trusting him without question. Ethan didn't know what he was supposed to do next, but he did know one thing. This baby, whatever it was now his responsibility, and he would do whatever he could to protect it. The night passed slowly. Ethan stayed awake, watching the baby, who was now sound asleep in his arms. He had no idea what the morning would bring. He didn't know how he would explain the baby to anyone or what kind of trouble he might be in. But for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose. He wasn't sure what lay ahead, but he knew that his life had just changed in a way he couldn't fully comprehend. As the hours stretched on, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. He was about to be pulled into something far beyond his quiet, predictable life. The baby on his lap wasn't just any child. It was a sign of something much bigger, something that had the potential to change not only his life, but the very world he thought he understood. And somewhere, in the darkened streets outside, a pair of eyes were watching, waiting. The following days passed in a blur for Ethan. The baby, whom he had reluctantly named Taro, was adjusting to his new environment. It didn't take long for Ethan to realize that Taro was unlike any child he had ever encountered. The baby was calm, unnervingly so for a newborn, and seemed to understand far more than it should. Taro never cried for food or water, and when Ethan placed his hand on the baby's small chest, the soft glow of light would emanate from beneath his skin, soothing Ethan's worries. Still, the questions in Ethan's mind grew each day. Who had left this child at his doorstep? And why? Ethan had managed to keep Taro's existence a secret from the outside world, fearing the reactions he would receive. His small, quiet neighborhood wasn't ready for an alien baby, and neither was Ethan. He kept the baby hidden from everyone, except for his closest friend, Mike, who worked as a local journalist. Ethan trusted Mike and figured he might have some answers, but even he was stunned when Ethan shared the truth. One evening, Ethan called Mike over to his house. He couldn't take the weight of the secret anymore. He needed to talk to someone who wouldn't call him insane. As Mike stepped into the house, Ethan immediately led him to the living room, where Taro was peacefully sleeping in a bassinet. Mike's eyes widened as he looked at the small child, still wrapped in the same blanket Ethan had found him in. "Ethan, what is this?" Mike asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and wonder. Ethan sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "I don't know, Mike. I found him on my doorstep a few days ago, and he's not like any baby I've ever seen." Mike knelt beside the bassinet, peering at the tiny creature. "It looks otherworldly. Is he an alien?" "I think so," Ethan replied. "I mean, he doesn't look human, and he's not like any baby I've ever cared for." Mike glanced at Ethan with skepticism. "So you're telling me that an alien baby just showed up on your doorstep and you've been keeping him here?" "I don't know what else to do," Ethan admitted, his voice shaking. "I can't just leave him out there. But every day, I feel like I'm walking into something bigger than I can handle." Mike was silent for a moment, then finally spoke. "We need answers, Ethan. This isn't just some random event. Someone must have left him here for a reason." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of Mike's words. "I know. I've been trying to figure that out myself, but there's more to it. The thing is, I feel like this baby understands me. Like it's not just a helpless infant." Mike gave Ethan a puzzled look. "What do you mean?" Ethan hesitated before speaking again. "The baby, Taro. Sometimes when I look at him, it's like he's looking back into my soul. It's like he's aware of everything around him. And I swear, there are times when I hear him whisper things in my mind. Not in words, but like feelings or emotions. It's bizarre." Mike's brow furrowed. "Ethan, are you sure you're okay? You sound like you're losing it a little." Ethan's face flushed, but he stood firm. "I know how it sounds, but I'm telling you, Mike, this is real. I've seen things. I've felt things that I can't explain. Taro is different." Just as Mike was about to speak again, the room suddenly grew cold, and the hairs on the back of Ethan's neck stood up. A low hum filled the air, almost like a distant vibration, and the lights flickered for a brief moment. Mike looked around, confused. "Did you feel that?" Mike asked, his voice laced with concern. Ethan nodded, his stomach tightening. "It happens sometimes. It's like something's trying to connect with me, but I don't know what it is." Before they could discuss it further, the doorbell rang. Ethan and Mike exchanged a worried glance. No one had been expected. Ethan slowly walked to the door, his heart pounding in his chest. As he opened the door, his breath caught in his throat. Standing on the other side was a woman, her face obscured by a hooded cloak. She was tall and had an air of quiet authority about her. Ethan felt an instinctual chill crawl up his spine. "I'm looking for my child," the woman said softly, her voice strangely familiar yet foreign at the same time. Ethan's mind raced. There was no way she could know about Taro. He hadn't told anyone. But before he could respond, the woman lifted her hood, revealing her face. It was unlike any human he had ever seen. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes gleamed with a deep, otherworldly glow. She looked at Ethan with a mixture of sadness and longing. "I know who you are," she said, her eyes piercing through him. "And I know you have my son." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. The woman standing before him was Taro's mother. But how did she know where to find him? And why had she come now, after all this time? "You're his mother," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "How did you?" The woman interrupted him, her expression intense. "I had to leave him. He was in danger, but I never wanted to lose him. Please, let me take him back." Ethan's mind spun with questions. What danger was she talking about? Why had she abandoned Taro in the first place? And why now? "I don't understand," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "Why didn't you just tell me?" The woman's face softened with regret. "I didn't have a choice, but I can explain everything. You're in more danger than you realize. Taro is not just any child. He's the key to something much bigger, and people, dangerous people, will stop at nothing to take him from you." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Ethan felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. There was something far greater at play here, something that neither he nor the woman had prepared for. And just as the realization began to sink in, the sound of footsteps approached from behind her, footsteps that were far too heavy, far too threatening to be ignored. The chase had begun. The footsteps grew louder as the tension in the air thickened. Ethan could feel his pulse pounding in his ears as he looked at the woman standing in front of him. She was no longer a stranger. She was a mother, desperate to reunite with her child, but there was something about her that filled him with both fear and awe. Her words echoed in his mind. "Taro is the key to something much bigger," and just as she spoke, another set of footsteps could be heard, heavier and more deliberate, approaching from behind her. Ethan turned around quickly, his heart racing as his eyes scanned the dimly lit street outside his door. The figure emerging from the shadows was tall, menacing, and dressed in dark, military-style clothing. His eyes, black as the night, glinted with malice as he locked eyes with Ethan. It was clear that this man and the mysterious woman were not here by accident. They were after something, something that had to do with Taro. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, his voice shaky but firm. He wasn't sure whether he was asking the woman or the man, but it didn't matter. He needed answers. Why had they come? What danger was Taro in? The woman looked at Ethan with sadness, her eyes brimming with tears. "He's not safe here," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "They've been hunting him, searching for him since the moment he was born. You must understand. Taro is not just any child. He carries the power to change the fate of entire galaxies." Ethan stood frozen, the weight of her words sinking in. The man behind her stepped forward, his face hardening. "You've made a mistake, woman," he said in a low, gravelly voice. "This child is a weapon. You should have left him where he was." The woman's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand. He is not a weapon. He is a child, and he is the future. If you take him now, it will be the end of everything." The man smirked, clearly unconcerned. It's already too late. Ethan didn't know what to believe. He wanted to protect Taro, but the sudden weight of the situation was overwhelming. The man in front of him seemed dangerous, like someone who wouldn't hesitate to do whatever it took to get what he wanted. Ethan glanced back at the woman, desperate for some kind of clarity. "Who are you really?" Ethan demanded, his voice breaking as he held Taro closer in his arms. "What is going on? Why is this happening to me?" The woman closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost broken. "I'm Zora, Taro's mother. My people, they are not of this world. We come from a distant galaxy. When Taro was born, he was more than just a child. He was the key to saving my people from extinction. But there were those who saw him as a threat, a weapon that could be used for unimaginable power. They came for him, and I had no choice but to flee. Ethan's head was spinning, but Zora continued. The ones who follow me, the ones who hunt Taro, they are not human. They are agents of a dark force, a group that has been trying to control the fate of the universe for centuries. They will stop at nothing to take him. But he has powers you don't even know yet. Powers that can heal, restore, and bring balance. Ethan listened intently, the pieces of the puzzle slowly starting to come together. But as Zora spoke, he noticed something strange. The air in the room had begun to shimmer, and a soft, golden light filled the space around them. Taro, who had been quiet in his arms, began to glow, his small body pulsing with energy. Ethan felt it too, a warmth that filled him from the inside out, a sensation of deep peace and calm. Taro wasn't just any child. He was something much more extraordinary. As Zora looked at Ethan with a gentle but desperate gaze, she continued, "He is the only one who can stop the darkness. But he needs your help. You're the one who can protect him. You're the one who can ensure his safety." Before Ethan could respond, the man behind Zora made a move to step forward, his hand reaching for Taro. But in that instant, something incredible happened. The room seemed to pulse with light, and Ethan felt a surge of energy fill him. Without thinking, he held Taro out in front of him, and the golden light around the baby grew brighter. The man's hand faltered, his eyes wide with shock as the light began to surround him. Zora stepped back, her face filled with awe. "This is the power of compassion," she whispered. "Taro's ability to heal is tied to the love and care he receives. You have shown him kindness, Ethan. And now, that kindness will protect you." The man recoiled, stepping back as if burned by the light. He looked around, clearly confused and frightened. "This isn't possible," he muttered. How? How is this happening?" Ethan felt the warmth from Taro grow stronger, enveloping him in a cocoon of light. His hands trembled as he held the baby close, feeling a strange, overwhelming sense of responsibility. Taro was more than just an alien child. He was the hope for a better future, a force of light in a world filled with darkness. With a final, desperate glance, the man turned and fled into the night, the light fading as he disappeared into the shadows. Ethan and Zora were left standing in the quiet aftermath, the energy around them slowly dissipating. Zora looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with gratitude and wonder. "You've done it," she whispered. "You've saved us both." Ethan was stunned. He had just witnessed a miracle, something beyond his wildest imagination. Taro, the baby he had taken in, was no longer just a helpless infant. He was a being of incredible power, and through his compassion and kindness, Ethan had helped unlock that power. As the golden light faded completely, Zora stepped forward, her voice filled with emotion. "Thank you, Ethan. You've changed everything." Ethan looked at Taro, his heart swelling with love and protection. He had never expected his life to turn out this way, but he knew one thing for sure. His journey with Taro was only just beginning, and whatever came next, he would face it with love and compassion, knowing that the greatest power in the universe was the one that lived inside of him. The miracle of compassion had changed everything. And as Ethan looked out the window into the peaceful night, he knew that no matter the challenges ahead, love would always lead the way.